I married my husband, Jake, because he made me feel like home. And I never thought the person set on burning that home down would be his mom, Susan. From the outside, everything about us seemed perfect. We met in college during a group project that neither of us wanted to do and ended up staying awake until 3 a.m. I married Ethan because he was home. But I never saw the person who'd try to burn that home down coming, and it wasn't who I expected. What started with whispers soon became an invisible war, slowly unraveling everything we had. From the outside, we were perfect. We'd met in college, thrown together for a group project neither of us wanted, and ended up staying up until 3 a.m., laughing at how terrible our teamwork was. Ethan was just steady. Funny, warm, the kind of person who could calm any storm just by looking at you. He always smelled faintly of cedar and coffee, and when he smiled, it felt like you were being chosen. I loved him for that. When he finally introduced me to his mother, Olivia, I wanted her to like me so badly. Olivia was perfectly put together, pearls, pressed blouses, lipstick that never, ever smudged. She smiled too much, the kind of smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "So, you're the one keeping my boy busy," she'd said, her tone sweet, but with an edge sharp enough to cut. I laughed it off, but I felt that invisible wall forming between us even then. When Ethan proposed, she clapped her hands, said all the right things, and even helped us pick flowers. But then she conveniently forgot to pay the florist deposit, forcing me to fix it last minute. "Oh dear, I must have misunderstood the date," she'd chirped, with a tinkling laugh. I told myself she was just scatterbrained. Ethan, ever the optimist, would say, "She's trying, babe. She just doesn't show it well." And I believed him. Love makes you want to believe the best version of everyone, doesn't it? Then, life happened. Ethan's startup collapsed. My clinic cut my hours. Suddenly, we couldn't afford rent. The walls of our tiny apartment seemed to close in around us, bills taped to the fridge like some twisted wallpaper. That's when Olivia swooped in, an angel in pearls, saying, "Of course you can stay here. We'll be a family again." I remember Ethan squeezing my hand, whispering, "It's just for a little while." I wanted to believe that, too. Her house was big, old, and smelled like lavender polish mixed with something faintly metallic, the scent of rules. Every picture frame was aligned with military precision. Every chair returned to its exact spot. Our room was the old guest room, cozy at first glance, but there was something off about the space, like it had been waiting, patient and judgmental. At first, Olivia was polite in that distant, performative way. She'd bring me tea I didn't ask for, saying, "I hope you don't mind herbal. It's better for your nerves." Or, "You're such a brave girl to keep working with those long hours." She'd compliment me just enough to sound kind, but always leave a tiny sting. Ethan didn't see it. He'd come home tired, kiss me, and say, "Mom was great today. She even made dinner." But the tiny things piled up. She'd knock and open our door in one fluid motion, the knock just for show. She'd linger in the hallway, pretending to dust while we talked. Once, I caught her folding my lingerie, and she just smiled, "Just helping, dear." My stomach twisted into knots. Still, I said nothing. You don't make waves when you live in someone else's house. The first big crack came one Tuesday morning. The house smelled of detergent and old coffee. I was ironing Ethan's favorite white shirt for a second interview, wanting him to feel sharp, confident, unstoppable. The steam rose, soft and cloud-like, and for a moment, everything was calm. My phone buzzed in the kitchen, a message from my manager. I set the iron upright, walked 3 steps away, and as I came back, Olivia glided past me, a dish towel over her shoulder, humming something tuneless. When I stepped into the laundry nook, the iron was no longer upright. It lay flat, face down on the cotton. A brown wound bloomed across the chest like a spreading bruise. I froze, my heart dropping. Olivia's voice floated behind me. "Oh dear, were you distracted again?" Ethan appeared 2 steps at a time, hair still damp from the shower. What happened? He asked. I set it upright, I said, but he was already looking at the scorched shirt, his mouth tightening. Olivia sighed. I told her to be careful with that iron. Your shirts are delicate. The shame hit me like a wave of heat. I just stepped away for a second, I said, my voice shaking. Olivia placed a hand on Ethan's arm, as if consoling him. Accidents happen. Ethan swallowed, forced a smile. It's fine. I'll wear the blue one. The blue one didn't fit right, and I watched him fidget in the mirror. Olivia stood behind him, smoothing his collar. Some people just don't know how to handle delicate things, she said softly, her eyes flicking to me in the reflection. That was the moment I knew. She wasn't clumsy. She was deliberate. Later that week, I made coffee before work. Olivia hovered near the counter, chatting about Ethan's job search. She leaned on the island and nudged my travel mug. When I reached to tighten the lid, her elbow brushed the cup, and hot coffee arced across the counter, straight onto a folder Ethan had labeled "Offer Compensation." Olivia gasped, "Oh no!" I grabbed paper towels, but the dark stain spread. Ethan walked in, saw the mess, and said, "Are you serious?" It was an accident, I insisted. Olivia added gently, "She's been rushing around all morning." Ethan pressed his lips together, nodded, but something behind his eyes dimmed. A seed of doubt. Tiny, but growing. That night, washing dishes, I heard her say quietly to Ethan in the next room, "She's trying so hard, poor thing. But maybe she's just overwhelmed." You are always so responsible, Ethan. I stood frozen, water running over my hands. That's when I realized Olivia wasn't attacking me openly. She was rewriting me, one whisper at a time. It started small, like a shadow creeping under a door. At first, I thought maybe I was paranoid, too sensitive. Maybe Olivia just didn't know how her actions came across. But soon, the house felt alive with her fingerprints on everything. One morning, my favorite mug vanished. A week later, Ethan's work notes disappeared for an entire day, then reappeared neatly stacked on his desk, as if mocking us. Every time something went missing or went wrong, Olivia was there with her calm, honeyed tone. You really should keep better track of things, dear. It wasn't advice. It was accusation disguised as kindness. Ethan tried to stay neutral, but I could see him changing. He would pause longer before answering my questions, glance toward his mother's room when we disagreed. Sometimes I'd find him sitting silently in the kitchen, lost in thought, like he was trying to untangle two versions of reality. Then came the earring. One perfectly ordinary Saturday, Olivia approached Ethan while I was folding laundry in the living room. Her voice was loud enough for me to hear, but soft enough to sound unintentional. I found something strange while vacuuming your car, she said, holding out a small pearl earring that caught the light. Ethan frowned, confused. That's not yours, Mom, he asked, taking it. Olivia tilted her head. It certainly isn't mine. Maybe one of your wife's friends dropped it. Or. She let the word hang in the air like a spider's thread. I stood there frozen, my hands gripping a half-folded towel. Ethan turned toward me. Yours are silver, right? He asked. I nodded, my pulse in my throat. That's not mine, I said. Olivia smiled. Maybe it's from work, dear. Things tend to cling when we least expect them. Then she laughed lightly, the way people laugh to sound harmless. But the seed was planted. I could see it in Ethan's eyes. The question that hadn't existed before. A few days later, she took it further. Ethan came to me, his face pale, his phone in hand. What is this? He said quietly. On the screen were messages supposedly sent from my number. Last night was amazing. Same time tomorrow. The texts were to an unsaved contact. These aren't mine, I said instantly. They came from your phone, he replied. Ethan, numbers can be spoofed. Anyone could have. Why would anyone do that? His voice cracked, half hurt, half disbelief. I don't know, I said, tears burning my eyes. He walked away, muttering, it doesn't make sense. But it did. To her, it made perfect sense. That night, I heard Olivia in the kitchen talking to him, her voice low and careful. Sweetheart, I don't want to interfere, but when I saw my husband go through something similar, it broke him. You're just like your father. Too trusting, too soft-hearted. I'm scared for you. She sniffled on cue. Ethan said nothing, but the silence was answer enough. The next morning, he was distant, answering me in short sentences. Olivia had turned motherhood into manipulation, and guilt was her weapon. Every word carried double meaning. You're working so much, dear, she told me one afternoon while I was making dinner. Ethan must miss your company. Then to him, later that night, I overheard her saying, she's always tired. Poor thing. Maybe you should surprise her with flowers, unless she's already getting them from someone else. She never accused outright. She just hinted. And Ethan, being the kind, trusting man he was, began to drown in doubt. The house became suffocating. I'd find small, unsettling changes every day. My perfume bottle refilled with a different scent. My favorite book moved from my nightstand to the kitchen counter. Unopened letters from my sister suddenly gone, only to reappear open later. Once, Olivia claimed she accidentally mixed up my phone charger and replaced it with one that didn't work. Another time, she washed a load of my clothes with bleach. Oh no, she exclaimed. I must have poured too much. Her hands were perfectly steady as she said it. Ethan's father came by occasionally, quiet and detached, always reading a newspaper in the living room. Once he caught my eye and said softly, she means well, you know. I wanted to scream. The emotional distance between me and Ethan grew like frost on glass. Silent, creeping, impossible to wipe away. I could still see him, but I couldn't reach him. Every time we argued, Olivia appeared out of nowhere, pretending she'd just heard something fall. She'd hover in the doorway, sigh, and say things like, marriage is hard, but don't raise your voices. Neighbors will hear. One evening, after yet another argument, I broke down. Ethan, I said through tears, she's turning you against me. He shook his head. You think everything she does is about you. She's doing it on purpose, I insisted. And he shouted, she's my mother. The echo of those words stayed in my head for days. I stopped eating dinner with them. I worked later, stayed in my room more, but that only made things worse because then Olivia started saying, she barely talks to you anymore, Ethan. I think she's pulling away. One night, I walked into the kitchen and caught her scrolling through my unlocked phone. What are you doing? I asked. She smiled sweetly. Oh, you left it on the counter. I was just checking the time. My phone screen glowed with my messages open. I grabbed it, shaking. Stay out of my things, I snapped. Her face didn't flinch. This is my house, she said softly. If you have nothing to hide, why be so upset? That night, I sat in the dark and wondered how long it would take before I lost myself completely. I even packed a small overnight bag, just in case. I thought of leaving, but I didn't want her to win. A week later, I woke up to find a note slipped under our door in Olivia's perfect handwriting. It said, a marriage built on lies can't stand, dear. I hope you'll be honest with him before he finds out on his own. My chest felt tight. My hands trembled as I read it. Ethan was in the shower, humming softly. I stared at the note and realized she wanted me gone. The walls of that house weren't walls anymore. They were witnesses. Every photo of Ethan as a child seemed to stare down at me in quiet judgment. And Olivia, she was patient. She didn't need to scream to destroy me. She just needed time. The breaking point didn't come as a storm. It came like a slow leak in the ceiling, one drop at a time, until the whole roof finally gave out. It was a rainy Sunday, the kind of rain that made the house feel smaller. Ethan was upstairs preparing slides for an important meeting. I was in the dining room editing a report, trying to ignore the low hum of Olivia moving through the kitchen. She was humming the same off-key tune she always did when she was about to do something terrible. "I'll rinse these," she called. I didn't even look up. A few minutes later, Ethan's voice thundered from upstairs. "What the hell happened?" My stomach dropped. I ran up and froze. His laptop was soaked. Papers spread like wilted flowers, coffee pooling across the keyboard. Olivia appeared behind me with a gasp. "Oh no." I told her to be careful with that mug. Ethan looked at me. "I didn't touch it," I insisted. He looked between us, and doubt flickered in his eyes like lightning. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just stood there as the last bit of his trust cracked. That night, lying next to him, I realized silence had become our new language. I turned to him and whispered, "You don't believe me anymore, do you?" He said nothing for a long time. Then, "I don't know what to believe." Those words cut deeper than any accusation. I didn't sleep. At 3 a.m., I sat in the dark, listening to the rain and her footsteps downstairs. The sound of her slippers sliding across the tile. The low hum of the refrigerator. The sound of her whispering to herself. "She'll leave soon," she said softly. "She always leaves." The next day, I bought a tiny nanny cam disguised as a picture frame. I told myself I just needed proof. Not revenge, just truth. I placed it on the shelf in the living room, facing the entryway. It watched silently, like me. 2 days later, the final act began. Ethan had gone out for errands. Olivia thought she was alone. The camera caught everything. She entered the living room with her spare key, wearing rubber gloves. She adjusted the pillows, sprayed a mist of men's cologne across the couch, pulled a long red hair from her pocket, and placed it on Ethan's jacket draped over the chair. Then she took out a hotel key card, attached to a shiny keychain that read Paradise Inn, and dropped it on the coffee table. Before leaving, she looked straight into the empty room and said, "Poor Ethan. He deserves better." Then she smiled. When I watched the footage, my heart pounded so loud I could barely hear the audio. The truth was uglier than I imagined. It wasn't just sabotage, it was obsession. I texted Ethan, "Come home now." When he walked in, I met him with the video open on my phone. "Please," I said, "just watch." He frowned, tired, skeptical, and I hit play. At first, he looked annoyed, then confused, then devastated. "Play it again," he said, his voice trembling. We watched 3 times. By the 4th, tears rolled down his cheeks. He sank onto the couch and whispered, "I'm so sorry." I didn't cry. I couldn't. The relief hurt too much. "We have to confront her," he said. I nodded. That evening, when Olivia came home from her walk, Ethan called out, "Mom, can you sit with us for a minute?" She smiled as she hung her coat. "Of course, dear." "Is it about dinner?" "In a way," he said. He slid the phone across the table and pressed play. The room filled with the sound of her voice, saying, "Poor Ethan. He deserves better." For the first time, Olivia didn't speak. Her face went pale. She reached for the phone, but Ethan pulled it back. "Why?" he said softly. "Why would you do this to us?" Her lips parted, searching for a lie, but none came. "I did what I had to," she finally said, her voice trembling with self-righteousness. "You don't see it now, but she's not good for you. I was saving you." "Saving me from what?" Ethan demanded. From being happy, her expression hardened. You're my son, she hissed. You belong with your family. Is this my family? He shouted. You're trying to destroy everything we built. She flinched. You're turning into him, she said bitterly. Ethan froze. Into who? Your father, she snapped. He left me, too. For some woman who didn't deserve him. Her voice cracked, and for a second, I saw something hollow behind her anger. A wound she'd never healed that she was determined to pass down. I spoke quietly. You're not losing him. You just can't own him. She turned toward me with hate sharper than glass. You think you've won, she spat. But when he realizes who you are. He already has, Ethan interrupted, his tone calm now, final. And he still chooses me, I added. The silence that followed was heavy enough to bend the walls. Olivia sank into her chair, small and shaking. You'll regret this, she whispered. Ethan stood. Maybe, but not today. That night, we packed everything. Clothes, photos, pieces of ourselves. The house felt heavier as we left, as if it was clinging to us. Olivia didn't come out to say goodbye. The rain had stopped, but the driveway glistened like tears. Our new place was a one-bedroom with squeaky floors and paint that peeled at the corners, but it was ours. I slept soundly for the first time in months. In the morning, I woke to sunlight and silence. Real silence, not the kind that hides secrets. Ethan sat beside me, holding coffee, his eyes red. I don't know how to fix what she did, he said. You don't have to, I told him. We'll build new things. Weeks passed. We started therapy. Ethan learned how to set boundaries. I learned how to stop apologizing for things I didn't do. Sometimes I'd still wake in the night, convinced I heard her footsteps, but then I'd see the ceiling, cracked but safe, and remember we were free. Months later, Olivia called. Her voice was brittle, like paper about to tear. I'm sorry, Ethan, she said. I didn't mean to hurt you. He said, I know, Mom, but we can't live like before. They agreed to meet once a month for lunch in public. The first time, she brought a casserole and pretended nothing had happened. Ethan listened politely. I just smiled, thinking, boundaries aren't punishment. They're protection. A year later, I bought him a new white shirt, the same kind that once burned under that iron. This one had a small embroidered anchor near the hem. He wore it to a job interview and got the offer on the spot. When he came home, he hugged me, and the smell of fresh cotton and coffee filled the air. We did it, he said quietly. We survived. Maybe that's the word for it. Survival. We didn't win. There's no winning when it's family. But we rebuilt something stronger than before. And sometimes, when we pass by that old neighborhood, Ethan squeezes my hand and says, she can't hurt us anymore. And I think he's right. Love without respect is just control dressed up as care. When you finally walk out of someone's house and into your own peace, you realize the walls that once trapped you were never made of wood or brick. They were made of guilt, and guilt only holds power if you let it. Now we see her once a month, just as we promised. She still tries, in small ways, to regain control, but Ethan smiles, changes the subject, and takes my hand under the table. That's what love looks like now. Quiet. Strong. Free. And maybe that's the real ending. Not revenge, not bitterness, just peace earned the hard way. Because peace, I've learned, is the most beautiful kind of victory there is. What would you have done if you were in my shoes?